Hello class. So now I'm going to be teaching you how to use UV tools here in Blender. To begin, what I would typically do is I would use this workspace right here at the bottom instead of using these tabs because it's going to be so much easier to customize your own. So here's what I would do. I would put up the timeline, vertical split, so you'll see a double arrow, and then you right click on top. A area options will appear. So how you use it is you vertically split in here, and then you vertically split. And if you're not going to use that, you right click again and then join areas, and then you'll have it, the whole thing joined. You'll turn on this UV, what do you call this, editor type, so that you'll have your own workspace. So I would turn on UV editor for this, and for this one, shader editor. You have a place where you're going to be editing UVs, and then you have a space where you're going to be putting in the materials and the textures. So it's best to have them both so that when you're going to render, you know what materials corresponds to which UVs. All right. So the final result should be like this, where your whole asset has one UV set right here at the bottom. So let's remove the image first so that you'll see. A UV is essentially with chocolate, right? You have a wrapper. UVing is the wrapper. And then the shape of the chocolate, that's the model. So most of the time when you're in edit mode, there are actually UVs already for the mesh that you have. And there are two modes to the UVs. You have the UV sync and then the non-sync. You can toggle these. Syncing just means that whenever you're in edit mode, it will show the UVs. And then when you turn it off, you have to select the whole thing in order for the UVs to appear. So let's say this has no UVs. So we will unwrap. Well, I guess there is a UV. But just for example, there's no such thing as UV for this mesh. How you do it is you go to edit mode, you select, and then you just shift select the parts that you want to cut. And then let's say I want to cut this, and then I will mark seam. Okay, so then you will see red outlines on the edges. You select the whole thing on edit mode. Now select the whole thing, and then you'll have unwrap. And then as you can see, it's now unwrapping the way that I want it. When we go to face mode, it's this, and then the bottom, front, up, and back. You can actually edit this. It works like edit mode. So you can use all the tools that you have that you're using for modeling, which is A to select all, G to move, S to scale, R to rotate. And then you just place them together in a coherent space. So let's say I kind of want to all seams on this. So I'm going to mark seams, and then I'm going to unwrap. Then now, pretending that these are all different pieces, I can rearrange them to the way that I like. So I want this UV here and here and here, here and here. So now that you're done, what we would do is we would make sure that it has a material. So sometimes when you make a model, you actually don't have a material. So how you do that is you select new, and then you can name it. In my case, I already have a material, so I don't press new. I just selected. Since you have UVs already and you have materials on this, and we'll call it box, we can export. So we'd go here to the upper left corner and then export using FBX. FBX is like a JPEG, but for 3D. So I would save it on the desktop. Make sure you have limited to selected objects, and then don't worry about these other stuff because you're just texturing. So you can export it now. I'll call this box. So export. When you boot up Substance Painter, all you need to do is to start new. Make sure that you are in PBR metallic roughness because that's a typical game workflow. Then you look for the file. I would look for the file where I've placed it. I would typically use 2048, OpenGL, and then that's it. When you import, you should have the box, and then you have the UV set. And now you can paint it. Actually, I will use this. Change the color, use a fill, change the color. I'll add a mask, and then paint. And then whatever I paint inside the mask, it's what's going to appear. So you can see Now you are ready for texture painting. This is how it works with the glasses that I demoed before. This has only one UV set, which makes it easy because you have the whole glasses fitting into one UV, and this is good, especially if the asset is so small. But let's say you have a character that is a full human size, you might want to split each element with its own UV set. Now, how do you do this in Blender? Simple. You actually set it up right here on the UV, where when you're in edit mode and then you have UV open, you go and turn this on right here, this box. You can scroll if you can't find it, scroll wheel, and then you can extend this. So let's say I want 6 UV sets, bigger sized UV. So I will go with 6. So now I can like split this into its own individual boxes. UDIMs, I don't know what it means yet, but it just means that you're having one mesh have multiple texture sets within them. We will make a new workspace. So new. Then we will look for the UDIMs box. We turn it to 2048. OpenGL. OpenGL is mainly what Blender uses. DirectX is what game softwares use, like Unreal Engine. You will check mark the use UV tile workflow, so that way you'll know which one is UDIMs or not. So you click OK. Then I will discard this just for demo anyway. So now you have UDIMs. It will do the same thing where you can paint on top. Change this. This time we'll make it blue. Add a mask. And then we will paint. Fill, mask, and then paint. And then now you can paint on top. But so it just depends on how detailed you want your textures to be. If everything's in one set, it means that you're limited to the size of the image. If you have multiple, you're not limited to that size because you can have a lot. Here in Substance, it's until times 10. That's a lot. So just make sure you don't crash your PC by doing too much. Let's try a burlap sack. There you go. That's pretty detailed. Now let's try it with the previous one and let's compare the quality. So I will do that again. 2048, OpenGL. Remove this because I don't want the UDIMs. It's just a box. So now let's apply the same texture. There you go. So see the quality difference? This one is a lot more pixelated and you can see the textures break the realism. So that's the difference. Whenever you're UVing, there are things called stretching. So for example, so I selected this with L and then unwrap. Now, you won't see anything yet unless you activate here using the scroll wheel, the UV stretching. Now, as you can see, the blue is actually pretty good. That means it's not stretching. This one is stretching really bad because it's almost turning red. Typically red, very bad stretching, meaning the textures will not be distributed properly. But if it's blue, it's perfect. So I'll show you the example. It will become bad when you paint. Let's change the color. You will see some stretching, especially here. See that? It's not distributed properly when it comes to painting, so there are going to be some distortions. In this case, it's not yet obvious, but it will be obvious when you have the texture sets laid out flat. It's gonna cause a lot of problems when it comes to detailing. So how I would remedy this is I would cut this and then mark seam, select this, we'll on face mode, we'll select this face, just this UV island, and now it's blue. So, just think of the solutions, how you're gonna unwrap the chocolate bar. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope has been useful. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask me. But that's the two different workflows. So you have the typical UVs, and then you have the UDIMs. All right, I'll show the time lapse right now, and see you soon. Bye bye.